What's up, everybody, and welcome into another episode of That Dynasty Show. Today, we have some real NFL season content. That's right. We are doing our starts and sits for week one of fantasy football. This is coming out the day. We're recording it the night before, but this is coming out the day of the Bills versus the Rams. It is kickoff. I am absolutely stoked. And Tyler, I know you're stoked too. So, first off, how we doing, buddy?
Dude, I am amped up. I've been waiting for this day for how long has it been since February? A long time.
Damn long. Damn long.
Freaking long. I'm just excited to, put my money where my mouth is and start making money on these fantasy takes, man. Let's freaking do it.
Absolutely. I'm super pumped. You're super pumped. Everyone watching, hopefully you're super pumped as well. So let's just jump right on into it. First and foremost, we're going to start off with two starts at the quarterback position. My first start of the week is going to be Matt Stafford, obviously playing against the Buffalo Bills later on today. And the reason why this has to be said is because he's got that shoulder injury, right? There's been a lot of reports coming out saying that this could linger into the season. We don't know what to expect out of Matt Stafford with the shoulder, but I'm not too worried about it. It's early enough in the season where it shouldn't be affecting him too much. And that game has an over-under of 52.5 total points, which is the second highest projected point total in the entire league for week one. So I have no problem putting Stafford out there and what should be a pretty good back and forth battle between those two teams. The next start of the week for me is going to be my buddy Derek Carr, who I've been parading around this channel nonstop. So he plays against the Chargers on Sunday, and this is actually tied for the over-under with that Rams and Bills game with 52.5 total points. Any matchup in the AFC West there is going to be an absolute shootout. And whether it's Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, any four of those guys, whenever they're playing an AFC West matchup, it's going to be an absolute light show with an absolute shit ton of fantasy points. So Derek Carr, you probably got him as a late QB1 or early QB2 on your roster. I would definitely fire him up this week, regardless of format. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of quarterback sits here that I have, and they're actually going to be in the exact same game. Justin Fields and Trey Lance, they're playing against each other on Sunday, and you may be thinking that, with Trey Lance, we're expecting more of a breakout. It kind of makes sense that we're sitting Justin Fields, but with Trey Lance, it might be a head scratcher as to why I'm saying to sit him. It's going to be a really low scoring game. This has the lowest over under total of the entire week at only 41.5. There's really not a ton of implied points on either side of the ball. I think, with this being Trey Lance's first start where he's actually in the spotlight, I kind of expect some week one struggles from him. And then obviously on the other side of the ball with Justin Fields, I don't expect the Bears to have many successful games at all this year. So this is just one of those games where I think Trey Lance is going to be getting his bearings as his Fields, but I'm probably not starting either one of these guys if I even have a slightly viable option elsewhere at the quarterback position. But now we'll move on into our running backs. And Tyler, I know you got a couple of running back starts for me. So who are your two starts of the week for running backs?
Yeah, so first off, I agree with all your takes. Shootouts sound like shootouts and the duds sound like duds to me. But yeah, I think my first running back is going to be J.K. Dobbins, actually, who's a guy that we've talked a lot of crap on all offseason here. But he is playing the Jets, and I don't expect the Ravens to even have this be a close game at all in Lamar's first game back. I don't think that I really don't think they're going to want to run him all that much in this one. There's just no reason to against the Jets. It should be the J.K. Dobbins show by the time the second half comes around. He really should see 20-plus touches in this one in reality. And I think even if he doesn't, I think if he hits that 16-17 mark, I think he's going to be pretty efficient with him. I don't have much faith in the Jets. So I'm going with J.K. Dobbins as my first one here.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely agree. As long as Dobbins is healthy and on the field, because obviously something to monitor between now and then. Hasn't logged a full practice, so just keep an eye on that status. My one start start at running back. Geez, man. My one start at running back here is the first one's going to be Chase Edmonds. He's playing against the Patriots, and the surprise cut of Sony Michel to that Miami backfield has catapulted Edmonds straight up the rankings, far and wide. Their coaching staff came out and said, yeah, we want to make sure that our running backs are touching the ball at least 30 times a game, and Edmonds is going to be a big beneficiary of that. I can see the early down work being split pretty 50-50 with Mostert, but Chase Edmonds is going to be on the field for pretty much every single third down in what should be a pretty close divisional matchup between these two teams. So big fan of Edmonds this upcoming week, and obviously if you're in a PPR league, all the better. He has to be in your lineup.
So my next one, my second one, is Melvin Gordon playing the Seahawks this week. This is another one that really should not be a close game. Get down. This is another one who really should not be a close game. And I don't really see the coaching staff wanting to spend carries on Javonte right now. I mean, they've shown the desire to prolong his career by keeping Melvin Gordon around. I think this is going to be one of those times to use him. I think Melvin Gordon is going to get all the garbage time work. And the Seahawks actually let up the most fantasy points to running backs last year per game. So I see Melvin Gordon getting a fair share this game for sure, week 1.
Yeah, I love that take. I really do, because I think that's going to be a very one-sided game. And to your point, whenever they can spell Javonte, I think they will, and give Melvin Gordon a handful of carries. So I actually really like that take. And my last start running back of the week is going to be Antonio Gibson. And this one's kind of obvious, right? There's not going to be any competition for touches with Brian Robinson. JD McKissic is really only going to be on the field on third downs. And despite me not really believing in Washington, I believe in the Jaguars a hell of a lot less. So I think Gibson will be used a ton in this game. Big workload coming his way. And if you held on to Gibson through all of the crap that was going on this offseason, well, then you've been rewarded, because at least until Brian Robinson gets back, Antonio Gibson's going to be one hell of an every week start at the running back position for you. So definitely don't be afraid to fire him up against the Jaguars in week 1. And moving on to our sits of the week for running back. So I'll go first with my first one. And I mentioned that the Chargers and Raiders game was going to be an absolute shootout, but I am going to go ahead and bench Josh Jacobs. I think this is just going to be a duel of two quarterbacks. And let's face it, Josh Jacobs could be phased out kind of early on in this one, especially if it's 21-28 by halftime or whatever the hell the implied halftime is going to be. So Josh Jacobs in a normal week, I do like him. I like him a lot for the 2022 season, but in a game against the Chargers, I just don't think he's going to see a ton of use after the first quarter once everything really starts flying around on the scoreboard. So I'm keeping him on the bench this week. Jump into my second sit of the week for running back, and it's going to be Devin Singletary versus the Rams. So again, this is going to be one of those high-scoring games, and maybe it's a cop-out choosing the running backs in the two high-scoring games to sit, but neither one of these guys, between Jacobs and Devin Singletary, neither one of them is going to go out there and catch a ton of balls. And in games where it's just utter shootouts, utter chaos, the running backs that don't have a lot of PPR upside are going to be guys that I'm going to try to avoid. So Devin Singletary, more than likely, he's not more than your RB3 on your roster, hopefully. So if you have other options at flex, or if you do play with 3 running backs, I would definitely explore those, because I really don't think Devin Singletary is in line for a ton of work against the Rams.
Yeah, and so it looks like we're kind of dissing some guys that we were, relatively high on during the offseason. I know I'm not really talking Devin Singletary anymore, talking Josh Jacobs. But here I'm gonna sit Travis Etienne here versus Indy. Indianapolis really should. I don't think they're gonna blow them out in terms of score, but I mean in terms of this being a close game, it's just not gonna happen. I don't think this is gonna be a game where the Jags touch the ball very much. It wouldn't surprise me to see Indianapolis win this one time of possession by over 10 minutes. I think there is a chance, I guess, that Travis Etienne just sees a load of receiving work in garbage time and in playing catch-up mode, but I don't really want to bank on that. I really think, Indianapolis is just going to run the ball down their throats, and Jacksonville's not going to be able to stop it. Indianapolis is going to do whatever they want, whenever they want. Indianapolis also just has a great defense. So, I mean, they're going to be tough to play against. And, yeah, I think Travis Etienne is going to be a tough start this week. I don't think he breaks 10 points this week at all.
Definitely a bold take, not saying 10 points, but I don't necessarily, disagree with you. We know James Robinson's going to be back there as well. So really just a matter of time before we see how that backfield is going to split up. But I think you got one more sit for us, right, at the running back position?
Oh, yeah, my bad. I forgot you did 2 and 1 because, sorry, I was letting the dog out of the room and I didn't want to interrupt your take. But my next one is going to be Rhamondre Stevenson versus Miami. Miami does have a really good run defense, actually. They don't usually get credit for it, because they do have good defensive backs as well, but their run defense is really solid. And Miami's offense also should be a lot better than last year. I don't think New England is going to be able to just run the ball down the throats and game manage a win here. I think Mac Jones is going to have to air it out a little bit. That Miami offense is pretty high-powered regardless of who's throwing the football. I could be throwing the football to that offense, and it would probably look pretty good. And, yeah, I don't want to touch Rhamondre Stevenson this week. On most rosters, I'm hoping, again, that he's not going to be a weekly starter for me, but I'm hoping that he's not a plug play this week either.
Yeah, I think there will be better weeks ahead for Rhamondre, but I agree. Let's temper those expectations before we see him, take over that backfield a bit more. We'll move on over to our wide receiver starts of the week. My first one is actually playing tonight, and it's going to be Gabe Davis versus the Rams. As I mentioned before, this is going to be an absolute shootout. Obviously, we can expect Stephon Diggs to draw top coverage against Jalen Ramsey. So I think Gabe Davis is honestly going to give fantasy managers that big breakout game that we really want to see. Obviously, no one got to reap the benefits of those fantasy points when he put up 4 touchdowns in the playoffs last year. But I'm not saying he's going to go out there and score 4 touchdowns against the Rams. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him have at least 2 on the board, because I think it's going to be, again, a back and forth battle, a lot of points, a lot of Gabe Davis wide open. So definitely look out for him to break out as early as, tonight in week 1.
Yeah, and my first start for receivers is actually going to be Jarvis Landry. He's a guy he's playing the Falcons this week, but he apparently has been Jameis Winston's favorite target throughout most of the preseason. And until we hear otherwise, I'm going to believe it. I think there's going to be a pretty big battle between 2 teams. 2 teams that are probably going to be pretty desperate to move the ball at all. I mean, I think there's a chance, obviously, that Alvin Kamara takes a lot of receiving work away, but he can't receive for 300 yards in that game, right? So it wouldn't surprise me to see Jarvis Landry go for 75 and a touchdown, 85 and a touchdown, and give you a really viable start this week. I mean, the Falcons also looks here like they gave up the most points to fantasy wide receivers last season, so that's just another little icing on top.
Yeah, that's a great take, because he's really only competing with a rookie and a still injured Michael Thomas going into week 1. So I think Jarvis Landry should be a pretty good beneficiary of those Jameis Winston throws this week. My other start of the week for the wide receiver position is going to be Marquise Brown. He is going against the Chiefs, and this game is the highest in implied point total with 53.5. I don't think it should surprise anyone that we're expecting an absolute offensive powerhouse between Arizona and Kansas City. Marquise Brown is going to be the number 1 beneficiary. I think he's going to absolutely torch the Chiefs defense, and he'll be Kyler Murray's number 1 target for at least the first 6 weeks of the season. Obviously, the touchdown upside kind of lies with Zach Ertz in that offense. But Marquise Brown is, I would go as far to say he's a lock for 100 yards against the Chiefs. I would be very surprised to see him held under 100 yards in this one. So if you got him, definitely get him in your lineup.
My last start is going to be Christian Kirk versus Indy. I know we said I'm going to sit Travis Etienne, but yeah, this is going to be an air show. This is going to be an air show for Jacksonville. I mean, Trevor Lawrence might throw the ball 35 to 38 times, but I think he's probably only going to have 220 yards. But I think about 40% of those are going to go to Christian Kirk. Indianapolis allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to receivers last year. it's going to be a catch-up game for the Jaguars, and Christian Kirk really is the only guy out there who's not running out of the backfield. So by default, I think Christian Kirk has a pretty good week just based on the situation here.
Definitely like that take. So let's get into the sits for wide receivers. And my first one here, I actually have a typo written in front of me. I put Elijah Mitchell, but I actually meant to say Elijah Moore. I was about to say that out loud, and I was like, that's not a receiver. But Elijah Moore, I am sitting against the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sure everyone has heard by now, Zach Wilson is not playing the first few weeks of the season. It's going to be Joe Flacco in there, and that's not something that I'm too pumped about. The Ravens defense is good. Joe Flacco is not. And it's going to be a very busy offense, right? I've been saying it a lot the last few weeks. They've got Garrett Wilson. They got Corey Davis. They got Michael Carter. They have Conklin, Uzoma. They have Breece Hall, obviously. So I am taking a wait-and-see approach with this Jets offense, and there's not a chance in hell I'm going out on a limb and starting Elijah Moore against the Ravens with Joe Flacco as the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Joe Flacco produced in his day. I love Joe Flacco. I won't stand for his slander, but I hear you.
So you think Joe Flacco is elite? That's a shame.
I mean, I don't think he's elite. I think he might have been. Whatever. This isn't about Joe Flacco. But all right, so I guess I'll go first for sits.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. So my first one, you're not gonna like it. It's gonna be DJ Moore versus Cleveland this week. That being said, though, I do think the Panthers win pretty comfortably here against the Browns, who are starting, Jacoby Brissett. So I don't think it should be too big of a challenge. I don't think there's going to be too much reason to be airing the ball out here. And if it is, it's going to be dumped down to CMC more often than not. There's a decent amount of competition for DJ Moore with, Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall and company and in Carolina. And I think it's, this looks like a 200-yard game out of Baker with, completions to 6 different receivers to me, and a lot of it I think is going to be CMC. So I'm gonna leave DJ Moore on the bench this week.
All right. Well, I'll try not to yell at you for that one. I disagree. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a big game because it's against the Browns, and Carolina wants to show off the new quarterback, but I understand where you're coming from, so I won't get too on your ass over that one. My second sit at the wide receiver position is actually from that exact same game, and it's going to be Amari Cooper. And I think Amari Cooper is going to get absolutely locked down. J.C. Horn was playing perfect defense over the first 3 weeks of last season before he went down with injury, and I think he's going to pick up right where he left off. He's going to be on Amari Cooper all day long. Jacoby Brissett, obviously not a very good quarterback. I think Carolina's defense is going to really shock a lot of people this year, and Amari Cooper he's not touching any of my lineups unless I'm absolutely desperate. So Amari Cooper's got to be left on the bench in week 1.
I still have a lot of love for Amari Cooper just because what he did for my team. But, yeah, again, I hear you. My second one is going to be Courtland Sutton versus Seattle. I think he has a chance to be startable this week, but I think Denver's going to get ahead really early this one. And I talked about it earlier. I think Melvin Gordon's the guy to start in this game. I think that Denver is easily going to win with the run game. And this is probably going to not be a very entertaining game to watch. Even though it is Russell Wilson playing against his old team, it's not going to be a particularly close game. The Broncos are much more high-powered than Seattle, and like in all phases of offense, defense, everything. So I think they're just going to be running the clock out the entire second half of the game and looking to go have a party after, rather than pad their stats in week 1. But I mean, I could be wrong. If he does score, I think it's going to have to be early. I don't see them really throwing the ball in the red zone, especially once they build a lead. So yeah, I'm going to say Courtland Sutton this week.
Yeah, I don't hate that take at all. I think Courtland Sutton's been taken way too early in drafts this offseason, and whether it's dynasty or redraft, I think that's the case. So I like this take in what should be a pretty boring game. So I'm going to move on to tight ends, and usually I'm going to have 2 starts and 2 sits for you guys, but it's week 1. All of the tight ends around the league are healthy. hopefully no one is digging at the bottom of the barrel right now. So I'm just going to provide one start and one sit, kind of streaming options, if you will. So my start of the week for tight end is actually going to be Austin Hooper versus the Giants. Tennessee has literally nothing going on for them right now. Obviously, Derrick Henry is healthy, but that's it. Treylon Burks was struggling in camp. Kyle Phillips is a 5th round or 6th round slot receiver. Robert Woods is on a new team coming off of a torn ACL, right? Or no, or maybe it was his ankle. Either way, some sort of leg injury. But the point is, Austin Hooper has proven that he can do it before, and he's going to be probably Ryan Tannehill's most reliable target for the first several weeks of the season, between Robert Woods coming in off of injury and everyone else in that offense being a rookie. So I really like Austin Hooper's chances to score a touchdown against the Giants, and I think he's going to be targeted a lot more than people give him credit for. Wouldn't be surprised to see him end the day with 6 or maybe even more targets in this one. So look out for Austin Hooper to have a pretty decent game in week 1. And then my sit for tight ends is actually going to be Albert Okwuegbunam. I don't know how. Yeah, that guy. Don't know how to say his last name, so I'm just going to refer to him as Albert O. But to your point, Tyler, we don't really think Denver is going to be throwing it a lot in the red zone. And I think Albert O is going to be really touchdown dependent. Like I've been saying that for a little while with him after Denver dealt Noah Fant, and everyone was really super pumped about Albert O. I think he's going to be really touchdown dependent, and I'm not going to bank on him scoring in this one because I don't think they're going to need him to. Plus, Denver came right out and said it. They don't really know how to evaluate their tight end room. Doesn't really seem like Albert O is that much farther ahead on the depth chart as the rookies behind him. So until he shows us something, I'm not going to put a lot of stock in him. I know some people have been taking him as a top 10, top 12 tight end. I think you're crazy if you've been doing that. But if you have been doing that and he's your start option this week, I wouldn't start him. Figure out something else because I really don't think he's going to have a very good game.
That's just another example of, taking guys at cost, I think, right? I mean, people sometimes turn sleepers into, what should be a solid draft pick for you. And I think it's a very easy way to blow up your dynasty team. So the very big, side note, totally side note. It just popped into my head when you said that.
No, it's a good thing to point out. It's kind of like, Romeo Doubs going up in preseason. Suddenly he's not a value anymore. Dameon Pierce, far from a value now, you got to buy him with the 23 first round. And I just had a rookie draft earlier today, actually, in a really weird formatted league. But Dameon Pierce, guess where he went in the rookie draft?
Because I think you're trying to blow my socks off. 104.
102.
Dude, you're lying.
Dameon Pierce only went behind Breece Hall in the draft that I had tonight.
What is it, like 3 points per carry or some shit?
Dude, it's absolutely asinine. But yes, Dameon Pierce went 102 only behind Breece Hall. So those are just some examples. But before we get going here, I'm going to provide this to everyone. I know everyone that plays Dynasty doesn't exactly use a kicker and a defense, but on the odd chance you do, or on the odd chance you just need someone for your redraft, I am going to provide a stream of the week for kickers and defenses, guys that are going to be rostered, around 50% or less in most leagues. So the kicker, he's going to be Dustin Hopkins of the Chargers against the Raiders. Again, this is going to be a very high-scoring game. It's going to be inside in a dome, so we don't have to worry about weather affecting anything. And this is one of those games that's going to come down to like a 48-yard field goal in the last 2 seconds. And I think Dustin Hopkins is going to be the guy to get that kick. So you know what? If you need a kicker this week, if you didn't draft one and you're looking to pick one up off of waiver wires, this is where you do it. Dustin Hopkins versus the Raiders. And then the defense start of the week is going to be Tennessee Titans versus the New York Giants. The Giants are all sorts of discombobulated. Sterling Shepard's going to play, but he's hurt. Kenny Galladay is going to play, but he's hurt and sucks. Kadarius Toney is hurt, but he's going to play. Darius Slayton just took a $2 million pay cut so that he can keep his job. Really, it's just if the Titans can shut down Saquon Barkley, they will probably borderline shut out the Giants. So I think the Titans defense is in line for a big week, and I think they're only owned in about 30 to 35% of leagues that use defenses right now. So great value start of the week.
And Daniel Jones is really turnover happy too. So that is a really good one.
Yeah, whether it's an interception or a fumble, or if he trips over himself when he's wide in the open field. I will never forget watching that game live and literally almost pissing my pants of laughter.
I've done worse myself, so.
You know what? Yes, I too have done much worse things in sports. I still remember back in high school, like sophomore year, wide empty net for me to tie the game in lacrosse. I hit the crossbar. Literally, the goalie was behind the net. It was a gimme. And yeah, it happens. Happens to the best of us. But I don't get paid millions of dollars to make mistakes like that. So
I was gonna say I could tell it and whatever. Forget it. I'll tell you later. Tell you later.
But thanks for sticking around with us here today on our first Start Sit episode of the season. As we go through, we're going to be putting these out every single week because, again, I know we're a Dynasty show. We're all about that Dynasty content. But hey, man, it's football season, right? We got to talk about those start sit decisions, and it happens to the best of us. Even I have start sit decisions that I struggle with. Tyler does as well. Everyone that I play in Dynasty leagues with, you could have the best roster out there and you're still fiddling with it 2 minutes before kickoff. So if you need help with those start sit questions, come back here this time every single week, and feel free to either comment on our most recent videos or join our Discord. Let us know if you have any very specific start sit questions. We're more than happy to address those through the Discord or potentially through the video as well. So any start sit questions or any Dynasty questions at all, you let us know.
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Be cool.
Be cool indeed. So for myself, for Tyler, for that Dynasty show, we will see you next time. Kick ass in your week 1 matchup.